Dallas, Texas, home to 1.5 million citizens and part of the greater DFW Metroplex, it is a city that has emerged as one of the fastest growing in the country. Yet as diverse and dynamic as Dallas has become, many of its own residents may not be aware of the leading role some local organizations have taken in extending a hand to individuals and families from faraway nations, forced to flee their country and homes, often with nothing more than the clothes on their backs, and the memories of experiences that few can even begin to imagine.
You're a Marine on patrol, headed for some village whose name you don't even remember. This is BC country, a region seized and under the control of the Viet Cong. Somewhere out there, in the dense jungle growth, they may be hiding. At any moment, you may come across them. Viet Cong or refugees? If Viet Cong, you know what to do. But if refugees, what? What do you do with these people who want out? Refugees who have had enough of the enemy from within. Your job when you encounter them? Where possible, to take care of these refugees. To bring them to a place where they can be safe, where they can learn to believe in life again.
After the 1975 event, the end of the Vietnam War, the communists took over the country. I was one of those people who had a lot of ties to the U.S. government and the former Vietnamese Republic, South Vietnam. So after the communists took over, I was stripped of every opportunity to survive, meaning I couldn't find a job. They constantly watch on me. Just like anybody, they suspicious of. Anybody who had tie to the U.S. government, they consider quote and unquote potential spy. And anybody who had tie to the former governments, are considered enemies. Those two labels make my life completely miserable and hard to continue. So my desire was I had to leave. And I tried for about 5 times, make 5 attempts, 4 of which failed. 3 out of 4 I was arrested, were incarcerated for different duration of time. The 5th trip was the one that we made out successfully on that little boat. Our little boat was kind of, basically kind of floating. We ran off close to running out of fuel. The engine started having some problem already. And then we heard loud noise of engines and wave moving. We were scared. We said, my God, this must be a big ship, which make us both scared and happy. Scared because what if this is a Russian ship, another communist country ship? They weren't going to tow us back. We're going to be in hell. But if this is a friendly ship, American or Western country ship, that would be great. That would be paradise. It turned out this is a French ship. They stopped us, shine a very bright light on us, and we had no choice but stop. And the thing that really make a whole world different to me and to everybody there was somebody up on that ship called down, said, "Does anybody speak English?" That's the first word. I said, "Well, I do." And the next question was, "Are you good people?" I said, yes, we are refugees.
We came from the Burma first, then the first step will be Thailand, the second step will be Malaysia, and the third step will be USA. Especially when we are about to move or run from there, we are really sad because that is our country and we're born there. All of us are born there, so we love our country, but there is some problem to live there. So we're really sad to live there. Then some of our grandparents or our neighbor, our sibling, everything's like that. We all left there, so we're kind of sad. We're we're exactly sad when that time. The first time, my father's going first because if we move one group just one night, they will be able to catch us. So that would be bad. So my dad just went first to the Thailand. Then step by step, my brothers and my mothers and we are follow.
Nowadays, within the last couple of years or so, most of the refugees that we've seen are from Burma and Iraq, Bhutan. Those are the three major refugee groups.
The numbers of refugees themselves fluctuates greatly from month to month. There are times, well, let's face it, like post 9/11, the refugee admissions to the United States went to zero for several months. And so all of the agencies that work with refugees have to have the flexibility and the wherewithal to deal with those slow times. But then the other side of the coin, there are lots of periods where there are just too many refugees coming in at one time and the system gets flooded. So there's some challenges to working with the imbalances in numbers. It'd be really nice if it was a set like 20 people a week arrive in Dallas County, but it's just not that way.
Texas today is ranked the #1 refugee resettlement site in the entire country. It used to be the second or third after California and New York. Now it's #1. That's great news. Mainly it's because, the weather is, even though it's hot in the summer, but a lot of our refugees wouldn't mind the heat. Some of them actually came from very hot weather, like the Middle East, so they wouldn't mind, or Africa. Plus, the economy these days, Texas is still known as, doing quite better than many other locations. I think there's huge refugee communities already there, which is very important for the support.
The Dallas branch of the International Rescue Committee, also known as the IRC, is one of several non-governmental organizations in the area working to provide services to facilitate integration, education, employment opportunities, cultural orientation, and language and vocational training to refugees in the Dallas community. Other prominent resettlement and specialized refugee organizations include, but are not limited to, Catholic Charities, Refugee Services of Texas, and Mosaic Family Services.
First, it starts the moment they are here in Dallas, the moment they land in Dallas. There is a part of pre-arrival planning that starts a little before they come, where we secure housing for them, refer them to health departments so that they can have their vaccinations after they get here.
It's not too uncommon to see some refugees who present with health problems that are very typical to other developed countries like what we see here. So for example, hypertension, diabetes, those kinds of issues that we commonly associate with the more developed world, with urban living. On the other hand, there are populations that come from very rural backgrounds, whether they be from Southeast Asia or Africa, where they may have never had access to healthcare, Western healthcare, ever. It's quite common in those cases to still see illnesses that they come to America with that had their roots in the refugee process themselves. So nutritional issues, iron deficiency, anemia, for example, often started from perhaps even before refugee flight, but certainly through the flight process, through the fleeing from the country of origin. And if they had attention in a refugee camp, it could have been very rudimentary.
But as a caseworker, your responsibility towards the refugee population starts at the airport. We do airport pickups where we pick them up from the airport once they land here, and we take them to the apartment, and basically that's the time period when the services starts for us as a case manager.
For me, I always want to make sure, even before I go to the airport pickup, I stop by the apartment, make sure that everything is done, everything is ready. They have food, they have their beds, depends about the number of the family and everything. I check on the internet, see if the flight gonna arrive in the same time or not. Most of the flights gonna be nighttime, like 11, 12, 1. Some of them they get delayed for the weather or whatever. So I wanna make sure that I have the name of the client. Sometimes or most of the time I don't have to speak the same language. They can be from any countries. So I wanna make sure that our interpreter in the phone available, that if I need him, I can call him in his cell phone to interpret for me. And I wait for the family in the airport. Sometimes they show up right away, sometimes they don't show up. And when they don't show up, this is the problem, because I know it's gonna be a long night. I have to go get a permission to go inside the airport to look for them, because most of them, this is the first time ever to be in an airport, right? So they don't know. And I think just some of them, they just drop them from the airport and they just find the first seat and just sit down. So I have to go get a permission or a pass from the security to be able to go inside and look for them. So we done that a lot. Sometimes they give us this pass easy. Some of them they don't hear about refugees or anything, so they takes us maybe an hour or more to get this pass to get inside and get the refugee. And it's so amazing when you see the kids or even the adults so happy that they make it to the US. It's like their dream land.
The first time we that day, the first day, we will feel strange. We feel strange, but because beside us, neighbor, or we don't see anyone, and we feel we are alone. But the one that in our heart is hiding is we are freedom, not in the other country. We are freedom. We can live freedom, and we don't have to scare any police or any government or something like that. We don't have to scare anything that was in our heart. We know that we are freedom.
So we got them at their apartment. What we do is we basically sit down with them in the first week or so, and we kind of go through the process. We explain them what we are going to do as a caseworker, what we expect of them, what they have to do in part. And also it's basically the first few months are linking them with services. So they may need documents, they may need other assistance. So as a primary role of a caseworker is to make sure that you are doing those core services that's required by the government to the clients.
I kind of compare us to a hospital. IRC is like a hospital. The resettlement and that sort of urgency of that first 4 to 6 months is that's your emergency room in the hospital. And so what we're trying to do with our office is how do we build those other departments that a hospital has to provide long-term care and all the sorts of care that are necessary.
The issue with refugee resettlement is, even though there are slow periods, it never stops. So you can spend all your resources on one family for 5 years, or you do the best you can for a few months with each particular family, and then you have to start on the new one. So there's never really a time where you can just kind of take it easy.
A big challenge is language. Not having English, the English language makes everything a little bit more difficult.
And I think there are a lot of other things like cultural differences, how they were raised, all those things.
The banking system, and how to use ATM cards. What's a checkbook? I mean, there's just a lot of things that are challenging.
I took them to grocery shopping. Some of them surprised how big is the grocery stores here, and how many kind of vegetables and fruits and everything.
But I think once they get good command in English, they tend to blend in more efficiently and more easily.
All the refugees, when they get granted overseas, they give them a loan, what we call IOM loan, which is their ticket, their aeroplane ticket. They give them I think between 2 to 3 months since the arrival date, and after that 2-3 months they start billing them and they need to pay it back. And it depends about how big is the family, or if it's a single guy or single girl or something, and also depends about which country they are coming from, because if you're coming from somewhere closer to the US, like Turkey or something, the airplane ticket is going to be cheaper if you're coming from Asia or from Thailand or something. And they need to pay it off in 36 months, and that's why we try to find them jobs as soon as possible, so they can be self-sufficient and they can be able to pay their loan back, so it doesn't affect their credit or anything, and help them actually to build their credit, because this is the first step for them to build their credit in US.
For resettlement, as a caseworker, we have about 3 months. But with employment program, the timeline varies, and if they are in need of medical assistance, something that keeps them away from working, or if there's something that needs to be addressed, that program can go up to 5 years. So it depends on what program you're in. As a case manager, for our services, we make sure that it's completed within the first month, and sometimes it can take up to 90 days.
Finding a job, I think, is difficult for anybody, and so we do a lot of trainings helping people to understand what the process is for obtaining a job, and then for maintaining that job.
It's mostly going to be entry-level jobs, maybe housekeeping, maybe restaurant jobs. Some of them, they come with experience, like they being a cook or something. We can find something like that for them here. But majority is between restaurants and hotel environment.
Yeah, he loved and he really liked his work, his job. အဖေလောက်ကဟိုမှာနော်ပကံစီလာမှာအနောက်ဘက်မှာနေ he's just stay behind the kitchen and just washing dish, but he said like cleaning stuff or something like that.
Usually we try to find jobs accessible by public transportation, so wherever we find the job, before I even take the client to job interview or anything, I check online, see what buses goes there, how much walk distance, because we need to consider also the weather. Like here in Dallas, it's very hot in the summer. Sometimes we got heavy rains and stuff. So we need to find out that the location of the company or the employer is accessible by public transportation, or otherwise, if there is employer hiring our clients also. But this is happening when they hire a big number, maybe 5 or 6. We put one of our old clients which has a car, so they can carpool with him, and they can pay him a little portion to help him with gas and stuff.
I worked with a man once who, in his country, when it rained, everything shut down, where, in his village and where he lived, and so that's what he knew. So one day, we found him a job, and one day it was raining, and he showed up at the office, and I'm like, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, it's raining, so there's no work today. And so we had to work with him and help him understand that, well, actually you have to go to work, and we called his employer, and everything was fine, and we worked it out. But just culturally, there are so many things that we take for granted. that they have to learn.
We also always offer to give our cell phones to the employer. You can call me anytime, day or night. You know, if you need anything, I can interpret over the phone. I can come here for benefits enrollment. I can come here for skills training, for anything. So we try to make them feel comfortable that there is a way to communicate.
We have a really great employment record here, and we're at, I think it's like 85% are self-sufficient, or, you know, meaning that they have a job and can pay their bills within the 120-day to, like, the 4 months to 6 month period. So yeah.
For those like elderly clients, they are not be able to speak English or learn, or sometimes have some kind of any mental problem or anything, you know, causing what they went through, you know. So we try to find them some activities to keep them busy and, you know, make them feel productive. So we start our community garden.
This particular garden has been a place for the Cambodian community especially to come and meet. It's been kind of a social area. Those gardeners that come here every day and work, and also people come in from the suburbs. A lot of the vegetables that are here come from seed stock that was literally brought from Southeast Asia, and so people are eating, they're growing and then eating the kinds of vegetables and herbs and things that they are particularly used to.
So now they've been using it for them and their neighbors and their community, and now actually they're starting selling this in the open market. Like every Saturday we have an open market, so that we support them with the tables and the tent and everything, and a staff member goes them 6 o'clock in the morning and Saturday, our days off, set the tent and, you know, put the product, and by noon everything is just like sold out.
And that helps a lot, I think, ease the cultural adjustment early on especially. It's been shown in the literature, academic literature, that of all kinds of immigrants that come to the United States, no matter how you got here, it's very common for food beliefs and practices to be about the very last thing that changes, if ever. So a lot of cultural groups that have been here for 100 years still eat very traditionally.
And I can see like how much happiness you see in their eyes when they do this kind of job, because this is what they do back home, you know. Most of them, they are farmers and stuff. So maybe if you put someone to work in a hotel, you know, he's gonna consider like a hard job, but he doesn't mind to work in the sun, you know, very hard job, you know, to grow their stuff, and he will be more like happy, you know, even if it's like 60 years old or 65 years old, they just amazing.
Only minutes away from the wealthy suburb of Highland Park, nestled right off Greenville Avenue and Highway 75, rests Vickery Meadows, a high-density, low-income apartment community where many of Dallas's refugees are resettled. Just outside this community rests Conrad High School, a school with one of the highest former refugee student populations in the city, particularly ethnic Chin and Karen, who have fled Burma or were raised in Thai refugee camps.
When we enroll kids in school, we make sure that there's somebody that speaks their language when we are doing the enrollment. So, for instance, like if we're taking a Bhutanese kid, we make sure that there's a Nepali speaker who's taking them to school at least like when enrolling and on the first day of school, so that they actually understand what's going on and what they're expected of, like immediately, like what are the paperwork they may need, how to get to the bus on the first day, where to like pick up the kid after school on the first day.
The educational background could be nothing, or it could be maybe 1 or 2 years of a refugee camp education, very little schooling, no English. Many times there's disabilities. We just got a student who only went to school 1 or 2 years, and he's blind. And so we had to do a full evaluation on him and send him to an eye doctor. So they come with many challenges and many things that keep them from being a regular student in this country. And that causes limitations on us and our staff, because many of our teachers are new teachers. They're just learning how to teach, and they don't know how to teach a non-English speaking child. So we have to give them classes in English as a second language and some of the quality English classes that we just learned from a teacher in San Francisco. And we try to do a lot of vocabulary, a lot of word walls, a lot of repetition, a lot of sign language that we make up ourselves just to try to get them to learn English right away. But it's very difficult, it's very challenging. But we could have a brand new student come to Conrad who has very little education. He could be 19 years old, and we have to put him in 9th grade because that's where he needs to start. And they will be in a first year ESL class learning how to learn English, and then they'll go from there to a second year and then a third year and then sheltered classes. We hope that that child will graduate, but most of the time the parents need money to pay for the cost they incurred coming to this country, and they'll drop out and go to work.
And then even to ask questions, they don't know how to talk. So you kind of have, as a teacher, you kind of have to look at their face, and if you have to understand if they are understanding or not, because they won't ask questions because they don't know how to. Even if they ask questions, sometimes it's just you take 2 or 3 tries to understand what they're asking.
Sometimes we're a little shy because we don't use the language properly, so that little nervous, but we can't do nothing just because we are happy, so we're just smiling around like that. Because I am not perfect, and if I talk I'm scared about people will laugh at me, and maybe he will make I think feel like maybe they will make fun of me, so I'm scared of talking. And even I went to school, even I'm being touched by the teacher, you won't have to scare or anything like that. I start the first day of my school, I'm brave to talk, and I use my language probably, or I don't used to talk.
You're not only teaching math, you're teaching English, how to speak, how to read, and everything. So the class moves slower, and then you have to speak slower. You have to write down a lot of words, and then it's just slower. It doesn't mean that they learn slower. It's just that you have to teach them from the beginning.
You touched on language, but not. I guess not just like the language, like the syntax and the grammar and those types of things, but also like the accents that they have as well. You know, the kids are very self-conscious about that, and it keeps them from talking out in a lot of my classes, even though I know like some of them, or maybe even most of them or all of them, are understanding what I'm saying. But it's like if I were to call on them or something, it's just like, you know, no, mister, I don't want to talk, or I don't want. And you know, just kind of having a conversation after school last week, 4 or 5 of the students I teach from Nepal were in my classroom, just helping me out. We were having a conversation, and you know, I just made the comment of, you know, this is as talk as I've ever seen you guys. Like, you're so quiet in my classroom. And they're like, you know, well, mister, like the other students make fun of our English and things like that, make fun of our accents. And it's like, you know, that kind of like opened my eyes, like, you know, these kids are so self-conscious to it. And, you know, not just that, but like a lot of kids, I shouldn't say a lot of kids, but I mean, there's a number of our kids here that have never been in classrooms before. Like, this is their first formal education. So like that background that I had growing up of like going from 1st grade to 2nd grade to 3rd grade and all that stuff building up, these kids haven't had that. And it's like, you know, you're trying to, in this high school classroom, the chemistry is not an easy subject. I mean, high school in general, I mean, isn't an easy place to be in when you have like all the social aspects and it, like the, you know, growing, becoming the person you are, let alone having to fit in 10, 12 years of education that they missed out on, and like packaging all that in. I mean, it's just like a huge struggle. And I mean, I have so much admiration for these students because I mean, most of them, like, you never know they're having a bad day. It's always a big smile, you know, Mr. Hess, how are you doing? Or anything like that. And it's just like, I mean, these kids are some of my most well-behaved and best-natured kids, and like, I don't even know half of their stories yet. And like, that's very inspirational to me. And like I said, most of them you would not know that, you know, besides the language barrier, that they are coming from places where they were chased out of their village by like soldiers from an invading army or something like that. And I mean, that's who's in my classroom right now. And it's like those like emotional experiences that they're carrying from their time like in their native country, which a lot of them is, you know, very violent. You know, they're suffering from the effects of that. And I've heard different stories from administrators where they're like, they were having like a tornado drill or something like that, and the standard position is to get down on your knees, you know, tuck your head and everything. And I mean, the story I heard is like, I forget what country the kids were from, but it was, you know, they seem terrified of this. Like, they don't know what a tornado is. But I mean, also, I mean, that's like how like soldiers would put them when they were going to execute their families and things like that. And it's like, to even think about like that association, like that's never something that would ever enter my head or any like of the administrators' heads. Like, we definitely don't do it by fault or anything like that, but it's like, you know, wow, like I never would have thought that association. And it's just like the things these kids are coming from are like absolutely unimaginable, and we're still asked and still, you know, held to keeping them to high standards, and they can perform at high standards. I mean, I firmly believe whatever my student, wherever they come from, no matter their background, their cognitive ability, their, you know, social ability with others, that they can achieve on the highest level. And that's my job, and I mean, that's my charge, that's my mission with these kids. No matter where they come from, no matter their background, that's what I'm here to push them towards. And these kids have endless potential, and I don't want anything from their past to follow them here, and I'm trying my best to do that.
But thank goodness this year I was able to hire a young Burmese teacher who speaks Burmese, and she's a math teacher, and she started a Burmese club, and that's made the kids feel very, very comfortable.
But then I saw Spanish club, I saw some of the like debate club and then stuff, and then so then I was thinking, why not Burmese club? Because we have so many students from Burma, and then they will want somebody just, you know, sense of belonging from in this school, attached, like kind of like attachment to the school. Most of the ideas come from the kids. We don't have president. We don't assign anything. It's just that whoever bring the idea is like game night. Is they say, Miss, why don't we have a game night? And then sometimes, Miss, why don't we go to a picnic? So then they just come in with the idea, and I would be like, okay, if you can just, you know, manage with that, and I would just let them do it. So then they would come up with. Then that's why we come up with the Burmese night. They're like, why don't we show our culture to them, to the school? When we have that Burmese night, they stay until 7 or 7:30 in the school practicing and stuff, and then and then I can see them, they enjoy it, because it just with the students when they are practicing, it just with their own friends and stuff, they were just laughing, and then they were singing. It just, yeah, and it take off their stress too. You know, it's stressful, but when they are doing it, it make them happy. So then it's probably they would think like, oh, school is not such a bad place after all, you know, whenever they're having the bad day, or, you know.
Last year, we had 3 pass the STAR test. 3. And I was happy about that, because they have to take it. No one's going to say, oh, well, they've only been here a year. It would be like you and me going to Russia and after a year having to take a writing and reading test in Russian and being proficient on it. I wouldn't have a dream.
It's just a language barrier. They won't pass it, they know. And if they have failed it, they don't want to take the second time. So they're probably going to drop off. Because I think they're thinking that if they fail it, then they can move on anything. So why not just drop out now? Because if they fail it, they're not going to go anywhere after that. So then if they fail this year, they're going to be next year stuck in the school again.
Sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 years to pass the test. But with more tutoring, it helps, yes.
There's this really big stigma of, these kids are in high school, it's too late for them and things like that. And like, I'm hell-bent on changing that. Like, changing that perception of no matter what type of education or lack of education they've had, this will be that life-changing year for them. Like, this is where it turns, this is where it stops, this is where the road to college or the road to a trade school or the road to just a brighter future or a future in general is going to start.
I myself, my parents were immigrants from Mexico, so we kind of have a bond there where my parents gave up their life in Mexico for me to have an education here. So I appreciate the parents and how they're doing the best for their kids, and they want so much for their kids to have a good life. And we do too. We really want them to learn and be successful.
Sometimes it's for children. They won't only, some of them are not even my students. They would need help with the others subject. And then sometimes they don't understand in English. Then they will ask me in Burmese to explain it in Burmese, what they can understand better. So sometimes they will come, not only after school, in the morning till they come. So then because I'm here since 8, so then they will come and then do the homework. They finish with the homework, but after that, most of them come in to just chill. And then they would just, so then it's like a meeting point. So whoever is coming, they will meet here, they will chat, they would just do, and then we would do something, we would discuss about the Burmese club and stuff.
So you're like the cool teacher everyone's coming out here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just, but yeah, they would come almost every day.
He arranged it by increased atomic number. Everyone else did it by what?
Atomic mass.
Atomic mass. That was sweet. Big ups to you guys. Much love in the heart. There's nothing they can't do, but it's just like that confidence that they have right now is also like I think a big obstacle as well, and just building that up in any way that I can, whether it's through test scores, whether it's just like putting like a little post-it note on their desk and saying, thanks so much for volunteering your thoughts today, or thanks so much for helping out your neighbor and talking in English or something like that. It means so much to them, and it's just like I can't even imagine the impact that I'm having, good or bad, and I'm trying to be conscious of my actions every single day, so it's the best possible interaction that they can have, because I don't know what their home life is like, I don't know what they're going home to. I mean, I may be the only smiling face that they see, and like I have to be really conscious if I'm having a bad day that I can't let it affect my kids. So
for them to get a better life, it's not only for them, it's for future generation, because if they don't pass high school, if they don't go to the university, their son and daughter is going the same way.
When we have like kind of this cases like the young son or something need to help out, or the daughter need to get a job to help the family out, we try to get them a part-time job. We try to place them with one of our good employers, because we have employers work with them like for years, and they understand the refugees and process, and they understand the refugees' needs. So we try to put them so they can set the schedule with their school. We try to encourage them to enroll in college. If they don't have the high school diploma yet, we encourage them to get the GED through the community college and stuff like that.
Most of them don't know about the grants they have here, from the support from the government, and then the loan that they can make. So then most of them were thinking that their parents have to pay for them. I mean, they barely make the living, they have to pay for them, and then usually I talk about the scholarship, loans, and then the grants and the stuff. So then I'm just making them realize that they don't have to pay for them if they just try harder, and then they have all the support that they need, money-wise. So then that I explain, and then I would explain then that I would actually let them calculate, if you are getting $7 right now, you work for 10 hours a day, and then when you graduate, if you want to do something, then it's just 30 to 40,000 minimum. I mean, that is a minimum wage. So then that's how I show them.
The flags was just, I gave out a student survey of just finding out a little bit more about my kids, to see just a little bit about them, what their likes, what their not likes are, and then knowing the population that's in Kaya, and then knowing the population I was going to teach, on it was, where are they born, and where are they originally from. It was something another teacher I got from told me to add that question. I was like, that's definitely a great idea. And just the mixed responses I got from California to Nepal to El Salvador to Somalia to Liberia to Iowa, to Georgia, Oklahoma, Iraq, Mexico, Burma, Congo, that's my flag, Ohio, Louisiana, Thailand. It's like, I realize this is such a diverse population, and I want to represent that. Like, I want everyone that steps in my classroom to know all the different people that have like come in this classroom, not just people, like the students as well, because I mean the students just see faces, they see people, that person's different from me, that person talks different from me, but they don't necessarily see where they're from and like all the different experiences they bring to it. And it's like when I first put the flags up, everyone's like, mister, why do you have the flags up? I'm like, well, this represents all the countries and states where my students are from. Like, it's just like a very like visible like manifestation of like the diversity that's present in my classroom. And some of them were like, man, it feels like a history class or a social study class in here. But like I also got reactions of like, mister, this is the first time I've ever seen my flag in the United States. And I've been here for like 5 or 6 years. I had students come in and like take a picture of their, like with their phone, and then they took a picture of them underneath the Thailand flag. And it's just like, I had kids like saying like, oh, that's my flag. Well, that's my flag. Mine's prettier than yours. Oh, mine's better than yours. And it's just like, you really see like some of that national pride coming out, because a lot of these kids are forced to be in America, and like if they had the choice would want to go back and be with their family and things like that.
I think every child should have the same opportunity to be who they want to be, to develop their talents, and every one of them has a special talent and gift. We just need to pull it out of them. What I told the kids the other day was that they were like a sculptor, like Michelangelo, who got a big piece of marble and he saw an angel in that. And I told him, you're like that. We can see things in you that you don't see in you, and we have to chip off some of those things that you've gone through in your life, maybe some anger, some hurt, some abuse, some torture, and chip those things away to make you that masterpiece that you really are. And I told them, you are a masterpiece. And they believed it. I'd said, now you tell your neighbor you are a masterpiece, and they looked at each other and they went, you are a masterpiece. And to watch some of the refugee children who can't say masterpiece, well, they tried it, but they looked at each other like, oh, really? So I'm just passionate because children are precious, and they deserve a chance to be whoever and whatever they want to be and go wherever they want to go. And if I could do it, a child of immigrants, and get my way through college and even earn my doctorate, they can do it.
We basically help refugees and asylees through all of their immigration process. And I can divide it in 3 categories. The law requires refugees, after they have been in this country for 365 days, for 1 year, to apply for adjustment of status. And it's the law requires that they do, and it's also the first step for them to become U.S. citizens. So the second thing that we do is we try to encourage our clients to become U.S. citizens. That's how I feel they are fully protected under the law in this country and take advantage of all of the opportunities this country has to offer. And it's a process. They can apply for citizenship after living in this country for 5 years, and they are legal permanent residents.
You can be a refugee and apply for resettlement and be approved, but your brother or your sister or even your spouse or even your children may not be approved. You have to be able to prove a well-founded fear of persecution. So I think that's the first challenge, is just, you know, there's no guarantees. There are 2 types of refugee cases, and so there's the first one is it's called a U.S. tie, which means that refugee or refugee family has a U.S.-based relative or friend. So in those situations where there's a U.S. tie, there's a connection to someone in the U.S., they can be resettled with that person. And so there's a small number that's actually that lives all over Dallas-Fort Worth.
Obviously, we are also here to reunite families. The reality is that our clients have had very dire lives before they came to the United States, and in many occasions families are separated, and we are here to try to reunite families and and we resettle families, and we also try to complete them. It's not easy in many occasions. We because of the population that we help refugees, and in immigration matters here in the United States, we have the burden of the proof. That means that if I am going to petition for a child for one of my clients, I need to prove that my client is either the mother or the father, and we need birth certificates and documents that our clients do not have. So we have to rely in secondary evidence like school records, church records, medical records, or affidavits from friends and family members to tell the story of this family and have our applications approved and have the families reunited. That's probably the reason why I chose to work with the IRC.
Some of the kids of former clients come back, and they're in college or they graduated college, and so it's really amazing. We may not see the long-term benefits of what we're doing in that sort of emergency crisis phase, but people come back, and it's those things kind of for me keep me motivated and keep me going. Yeah, it's very rewarding. And then we also learn to celebrate the small steps that people make, and there's learning to drive a car. Who would think that getting a driver's license would be like a huge success? Or there was a teenager once who didn't speak any English, and his first passing grade in high school on one of his tests, he brought to me, and it was a C-, but he passed, and he knew enough, he had learned enough English. So there's a lot of little rewarding things that happen, but it's hard.
It's amazing to see how proud they are whenever they become U.S. citizens, and to see that all of their hard work it's for good, because their kids will have opportunities that they didn't have before, and it's really amazing work, and sometimes it's hard. The truth is that sometimes it's not easy, but to see our clients fight for themselves and their family, it's a privilege.
Sometimes when you see clients, you foresee a problem. I say, okay, maybe it'll be tricky here. Maybe it won't work out as when you are planning for them, But eventually they overcome everything and they become successful. So that's something that I've seen like time and again. Like I've seen families, I've seen individuals, I've seen kids like thriving in such a pace and such a manner, unprecedented manner, that I never expected that would happen. So it's really heartful. I mean, I really, that as I said in the beginning, that's what motivates me here, because when you do the paperwork, you that's part of the job, but also when you see lives being changed, that's really motivating.
I won't have any dull day coming to work, because I would make a difference by just being here and continue to lead the agency, meeting our mission statement, but continue to become that catalyst of change, that helping people attain another level of, the level of self-sufficiency, that kind of thing.
And we have that going pretty well in this community now. There's been a lot of Vietnamese organizations in the past, Cambodian student organizations. There's a Bhutanese association now. A lot of the churches in the area have been involved in working very closely with refugee communities, specific refugee communities, over an extended period of time.
If you see a refugee population out here, they are so committed for the community. Like they form community, they form bonds, they have groups, so that if a new refugee family comes in, there'll be 10 other families that are willing to help.
So there is many ways to help out. Donate your old stuff, your old shoes, your old jeans, your old jackets. People need that.
So we just come here with nothing. And when after 3 or 2 weeks, Miss Mehta is volunteer us some new clothes and everything that she gave us. It's really helped us. So until today, we're waiting what she gave us. Everything that we have in our clothes, also all the things that she gave us, even the flower, like the clock, also the clock, a lot of things that she volunteers, she gave us. So he is really helpful person in my ever life that I ever seen.
I think the best way, just come to us, volunteer with us. You don't have to doesn't mean like you're gonna volunteer, you're gonna have like 8 to 5 job. You can volunteer 1 day a week, 2 days a week. You can be a mentor for one of our families, just help them out to educate them about the culture and stuff, you know, take them out sometimes in your day off or something, visit them. Even if you are working, you can visit with the families like after hours, like after work hours, of course, you know.
All the small things will go a long way because small things like this matters a lot to them. And if we are able to provide as a citizens of Dallas, help these people do all this, we will have a future of Dallas, because all these people who are willing to work hard, their kids will work hard, and then maybe with good education and being well taken care of in the community that they live in, they will be able to give back to the community in days to come and in future to come.
So